aboard!
Hey, what's up, everybody? You're listening to Cannabis Karaoke, where we ask you to grab the mic and tell your story. Get inside info from today's most interesting cannabis pioneers, and from the first note to the end of the song, listen up as you get to hear the stories of success on Cannabis Karaoke. Welcome back to another episode of Cannabis Karaoke. And just like the other podcasts that you guys have dialed into and listened, you know, we do our best to bring people that are providing solutions in the cannabis space or telling their stories about the cannabis space. And I had the pleasure of meeting this next guest not too long ago, actually. And if her passion comes through on this podcast half as much as she came through on the phone call with me, I guarantee you guys are going to be motivated. I would like to welcome Ashley Elsner to the show. She's the CEO and founder of Artery. And just a little preface to that, it's in this industry, you know, it's a lot of cash-driven business, a lot of ATMs in the dispensaries, a lot of crypto coin, kind of cryptocurrency style processing. And she's coming at it a little bit different way, and she's got the chops to be able to speak to it because she's been in the space for quite some time. But I just want to welcome you to the show and thank you so much for sharing your information today with everybody.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Danny. I'm really happy to be here and just delighted to speak to your audience about some of these issues.
Yeah, so Artery, I mean, that's a catchy name. How did you come up with that name? And then tell us a little bit about your background prior to coming into the cannabis space.
Sure. So Artery came about as a result of thinking through, you know, what the problem really is with payments and banking in this space and where the block seems to be coming from. And so, you know, one of the things we actually thought about for naming it was, you know, arterial stint, which is basically a mechanism for unblocking clogged arteries.
Right.
You know, that's a little bit overly medical, maybe a little too specific, but, you know, artery really encompassed what we were talking about, which was trying to provide that sort of transactive medium, the in and out, inroads and outroads that have really been blocked by the banking industry and are less about, you know, legislative issues, less about legality, and so much more about institutional pressure and, you know, sort of outdated risk management policies. And your second question, what was that again?
What was your background like prior? Look, I've met a lot of people that have come up with solutions in the same vertical, and they don't have the background that you have, and they go, oh, I know cryptocurrency, so I'm going to start a cryptocurrency blockchain credit card processing system. And there's a million of them out there, and they usually have to hire compliancy lawyers and financial lawyers, and they have a learning curve to the process. Tell us a little bit about how you came to the table fully suited.
Okay, sure. So I am a financial institution lawyer by background, which means that I was running financial institutions. And when I say running, I don't mean like, oh, I was telling somebody to execute trades on my behalf. I was actually the person who was sitting in the background, getting all of the trades executed, coordinating all of the different parties that were involved in that, and then actually making sure that things went through. And after the fact, doing all the compliance that's required to be done on those transactions. I mean, that's the little trick about finance is that very typically the people that you talk to are relationship managers, and they don't really have a good idea of how the actual sausage gets made. And, you know, honestly, bless everybody, because they should not have to learn that. That's such a specific area of knowledge. And honestly, when you go to the financial system, what do you want it to do? You want it to work, right? And that's really where I come from, is making all of these things work, making the things line up. I started my career at Sidley Austin doing financial regulatory work. And from there, I went to Bessemer Venture Partners and worked in legal and operations for them. I started another FinTech after that, which was also focused on trying to open up access where there was not a regulatory blockade, but really an institutional blockade. And, you know, now I've come to the cannabis industry really wholeheartedly. And I feel so very strongly about this industry because I'm also a patient. Um, I live with a condition called complex regional pain syndrome type 2. I'm actually going to be speaking in November, at a pain management summit at the University of Pennsylvania on being a person who uses cannabis to manage my pain condition. And I've lived with this for 13 years and had absolutely no relief from pharmaceuticals and had limited relief from other types of treatments. And then, a year and a half ago, here I am in California working on this problem. And my father, who is a neurologist, suggested that I actually try the product for my pain. And I had read the studies, knew that it had been effective. And when the first time I tried it, I'll tell you, I cried actually, because I had not been pain free for 12 years, and all of a sudden I was pain free. And it lasted for a full 24 hours without redosing, which is just unheard of when you start talking about pain management therapies. And I was, both heartbroken that I had gone through what I did for as long as I did when this was something I could have been using the whole time. And, became so just emblazoned by the fact that this is an incredible pain management technique. It's an incredible plant with a lot of benefits that are so important. And what's going to actually end up causing a problem for legalization? Okay, this stupid sausage stuff that I know how to make that, other people have a lot of difficulty with because it's just so technical. People are bless their heart, their eyes completely cross when they talk to me and I tell them, how we're going about doing this, because there's just so much to the processing side. There's so much to the internal operations of finance that people just don't know about. And it's all done by specialty lawyers, all of it. So, that's the reason why we're in this, is I want to make sure that there's nothing that causes some sort of delay in efforts moving legalization across the finish line. I don't want to see something stupid financial junk end up giving a black eye to the industry when there's so much fantastic potential, and there's no deliberateness to any of the financial issues. It's not like people are deliberately, not doing what they're supposed to do. They're getting blocked. They're getting blocked by the banks, and it's just not fair.
Yeah, I just had the talk today with the gentleman that I interviewed earlier, and we were talking about credit unions and how they're governed by the NCIA or NCUA versus the FDIC and the banks, and then you got different credit card. I've lost a couple bank accounts, and I don't even touch the plant, but I'm connected to the people that are touching the plant, and so then it ends up where you are associated by default and by guilt, I guess. And I'm sure, like, when you were going into the dispensaries for the first couple of times, being somebody that was in, and by the way, FinTech, just for all those people that don't know what that means, it's financial technology. You must have been surprised at how they were transacting. Like, oh yeah, sure, you can use the ATM in the corner and just get, we all know too that it's one thing I feel like your service provides the freedom of not having to have a bunch of cash on site, and it also helps upsell. We all know if you pull that card out, doesn't feel like real money when it's hitting it until you see your bank account. When you're having to literally buy that, item with the hard cash, you're not often able to be upsold. So it's like you're solving kind of two problems at the same time. Which I'm sure you were just, was there that aha moment when you're like, why aren't they taking credit cards? Or what made you go, I'm going to create another financial technology, another FinTech, and I'm going to do it in the cannabis space specifically for dispensaries? You can't get much more niche than that.
That's true. You're absolutely right. This is the tricky bit. I understand why they can't accept credit cards. And it's true, there's still a few that are doing so or trying to work on a workaround But honestly, in financial services, unfortunately, your operations are dictated to you. You do not get to make the decision about who you operate with, who you support, what the rules are. You unfortunately are governed completely by somebody else's rules. And the credit card situation is a tricky one, and again, a very technical one, where the credit card networks are refusing to provide what is called a merchant category code for the cannabis industry, right? And so what that means is if you try to run credit card transactions on this network, you're forced to miscode the transaction.
Right, which is a fraud.
It is a fraud. It is unfortunately also money laundering. And yeah, I know that's a dirty, dirty word. And that is, again, this goes back to how I know all of this really boring, frankly, sausage making process and all of the technicalities that go into it and why things are the way that they are. And I also understand that, organizational change for financial services is a hard thing to push. And it's even harder to push from the outside. And despite the fact that, this is a fantastic and growing opportunity, there is a history that makes financial institutions, knee jerk. And it's very hard to get the executives on board with making those changes because they feel like they don't have enough data to make a good decision. So what we do with our financial technology is we do a hybrid between sort of a bank-to-bank transfer and the use of blockchain. Now, we are not in any way using cryptocurrency whatsoever. You don't have to have a cryptocurrency asset riding along your blockchain system. That's a misunderstanding sometimes. I actually think people in the cannabis space tend to understand better what cryptocurrency and blockchain are than a lot of other segments. But
because it's so hard to get money into the bank. You know what I mean? It's just it's really hard.
Exactly. And it's true that people have certainly turned to crypto assets to try to find a digital medium to hold those assets. But the tricky bit about that in the United States, at least, is that you still have to have bank access to be able to access the crypto networks.
Sure.
And, that's a tricky bit. So what our system does is it attacks the cash problem from two different angles. You've got the transaction system from the customer base, right? So there's that cash inflow that you've had a problem with. I mean, like you say, you walk into a dispensary and it's like, okay, you can go use like the $3 or $4 transaction ATM in the corner. Or maybe you walked in with cash, maybe. A lot of people don't these days. But what this does is it's a Venmo style platform that allows your customer to very easily transact with you in a way that basically pulls directly from their bank account into a for the benefit of account. So what that is PayPal at its origin, Venmo at its origin. They have these pooled accounts where they were basically holding the underlying assets in sort of a trust-like style, and then just transferring ownership of the assets around the customer base. And we're doing the same thing, but we are using a better technology. So blockchain is fantastic. The records are not alterable, so you can trust them very easily. It provides insulation from changes to banking policy. Again, because this is institutional policies, it really doesn't have anything to do with the law at all, but can trigger legal enforcement, unfortunately, for those who run afoul of it. So we've got this blockchain platform that gives you these auditable transaction records. It's also very easy for your financial regulators to come in and say, oh yeah, everybody's doing what they said they're doing. Everybody's operating legitimately. There's no reason to be concerned about this group of people. And when the financial regulators see that, it also provides this auditable trail of records that you can eventually walk into a bank and say, hey, I've got these third-party records that are accounting for all of this cash that's come into the system. And that cash is also in a digital medium. It means that you guys don't have to deal with, oodles and piles of cash coming in and security threats to your team. that, we as an industry have been burdened with from your refusal to grant access.
Yeah, it definitely makes it. I mean, people get robbed at certain times of the day because they know that's when they have the most cash on hand.
Yeah. I mean, it's awful. The physical risk that this industry is put through is just not fair. It's not right. And so we wanted to provide something that was easy to find. I mean, it's available. Artery Pay is available in the Google Play Store. It's available in on the App Store. You can download it from our website at www.arterypay.com.
Is it usable as like a peer-to-peer too, or is it?
Yes,
like,
it is.
Okay, so it's got flexibility.
It does.
And
eventually we expect that it'll push out past the cannabis industry as well, because it's a system that can be used ubiquitously, and we're trying to provide fair rates. We're trying to provide fair access and give people the tools to be able to bank when more banking comes online.
What's what's stopping Venmo from jumping into the space, or like how are you cornering or putting a moat around your business?
So, Venmo and PayPal, what they are missing is the piece of the transaction system that we have built into it, which is the anti-money laundering piece. So that's something where you have to do reporting on really every single transaction in the cannabis industry. And it's expensive. It takes a lot of resources, and it's primarily done by hand. Again, we're getting into how the sausage is made in the financial systems. And the compliance professionals that are involved in that space are extremely expensive to employ. They tend to be overworked and really at a capacity limit that makes it very difficult for these financial institutions to add additional, very specialized burdens onto them that they need to do additional reporting and also be monitoring the way that the transactions are going. And so we've actually built that into our transaction system. So the reporting is done automatically. The transaction happens, the report's generated, it goes to FinCEN. And FinCEN is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network of the Department of the Treasury of the United States. So that's who governs. A lot
of words right there you had to remember.
Which is why I shorthanded at FinCEN.
The listeners appreciate, we sometimes talk in acronyms, and it's good to remember that sometimes people don't understand the acronym or the what it stands for. So I appreciate you spelling that out for everybody.
Sure, they shouldn't have to remember these things. It's just, again, right? It's so in the weeds.
Yeah, I mean,
pardon the pun.
So does a person have to be a member of Artery Pay, or can you just go do it? Like, can I just go download? Like, do I have to create a profile in the software?
Not anything more than you would have to do with Venmo. Now, on the business side, of course, we have to do enhanced know your customer due diligence on customers. We're a financial institution, right? We have to do what every other financial institution has to do, which is make sure that the folks that we are working with are above board, that they are, doing things the right way, which, as we've discussed, I think most people are really trying to do that. And, they may have had some mistakes in the past, but it's not anything that should prevent them from being able to access the system just like any other business. I mean, it's so important to provide these services, because otherwise you end up with this, circular logic of like, oh, well, you're in cash, so we can't bank you. And it's like, okay, well, the cash keeps growing because you won't bank us.
Right.
It's some silliness about that as well. But yeah, so from the consumer perspective, it's very easy. I mean, those guys are typically already banked. So a lot of the know your customer diligence has been done. You can rely on that as a financial institution, so long as you have appropriate arrangements in place. And what that means is, for them, they can download this just like Venmo from the App Store, from Google Play, from our website. You can download it, and you can actually start transacting almost immediately. We actually connect to their bank account without holding any of their account information. We connect in a way that confirms their identity through their mobile banking credentials rather than us holding their account information. So it's even more secure than a lot of the financial systems that took on your account information previously.
Well, and what people don't understand, sorry, I wanted to add to that, is that that's the future-proof moat that I was looking for, because, we haven't really seen it happening yet, but data breaches happen all the time. And,
oh, yeah.
And your phone is carrying every version of every password you do, and is not usually very well protected. So,
that's right.
So a lot of people aren't putting Norton virus or protection on their phones yet. No one's using VPNs yet on their phone to transact financial. Like you tap the app, you look at it, it opens, you deposit a check with a picture. Pretty soon, just like they can skim at gas stations, they'll be skimming apps.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
So I get the Artery app, right? I'm on Artery Pay. I got it. How does that, like, I walk into a dispensary, the dispensary obviously has to be signed up as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So dispensary signed up, I'm signed up. Do I have to wait? Like, so when I'm trying to play stupid here because I wanted you to walk me through as if I'm actually doing it. So
please.
I have it on my phone. The dispensary has their set up. How do I transact? Do I use my phone and lay it on a scanner? Do I text to a code that they have? Like, what's that transaction look like?
So the way that we do it is through QR code scans. Now, what's really lovely about blockchain, and this is something that actually you'll like when you start talking about fraud prevention. We've got quite a few different things in there that protect against theft of the account. It has to do with operational choices that we've made. But one of these things is the use of the QR code and a private key versus public key. So for those of our listeners who are familiar with blockchain and how the private key and public key works, I apologize. But what happens is basically what happens in blockchain is two separate IDs are created for your account. One that allows incoming transactions and one that allows outgoing transactions. They are not connected, which means that somebody gets your credit card number, for example. They have access to send out. They have access to basically make payments without any other details being needed. That's not the case here. Your private key is something that's protected. It's something that is not accessible to any public entity. It's not something that can be taken away from you. So basically, from your phone, you can accept funds. It takes a completely separate type of transaction for you to send them out. It's a different account number altogether. So that's the difference.
So when they're transacting, so what I think I'm hearing is, because of the way you've adhered to all the different financial requirements to transact money digitally, that it's even another layer of security to where your private key is just one of the ways that enacts the transaction of capital to the person you're trying to pay.
Correct.
Okay.
And so that is something where you have to dial up our system to actually, I don't want to say dial up, that's from an old time era. But basically you have to call up our system to get the private key, and those are kept offline, right? So there's a communication that has to happen there, and it's very hard to crack that. So it's going to be very difficult for somebody to be able to steal your ability to transact outward. They'll be able to see your public key and send you money all day long.
Interesting. It's fascinating to me because we're moving towards more and more. I mean, like when I travel, I don't have paper tickets. When I'm, if I check out somewhere, I use Apple Pay, or I'll use my watch, and so as this progresses not just in cannabis, but in the general world, you are probably already ahead of some of these other people, if they're not already thinking about it, about safety, when it
Yes.
comes to your financial information.
Yes. That's exactly right. Blockchain has a lot of promise in that area. It has a lot of promise for being able to encrypt. I mean, they are encrypted databases. That is what blockchain is. It is encrypted databases. It is, there's a patchwork of security that surrounds almost all financial institutions. They have done as well as they can. There's constant security threats. They are constantly putting out fires. As digitization of cash, which we do as well, as digitization of cash becomes, so ubiquitous across the rest of the world, you are going to see way more cyber threats than you are going to see anything else. And that is something that keeps our team up at night. We are constantly trying to think about how we're going to be able to take care of that. And we've come up with some pretty clever solutions on that. But I think we should probably go back to our friend at the dispensary.
Right.
Right. And their transaction.
So I want to buy they tell me my total. They at that point give me their public key. I'm taking it. And then I send them.
That's right. You pop up that public key. Typically how this is going to work is they will have their point of sale system pops up a QR code. That QR code is read by their phone in the app. And then the transaction will pop up on their screen with their receipt, and they confirm the transaction from there.
So do you guys integrate with, are you integrating directly in like a token on the point of sale or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are. Certain point of sales already have QR code based systems.
Okay.
And that allows much more for tokenization. Others are operating on systems that were not as well designed.
No, are you kidding me? In the cannabis space, we have poorly designed point of sales out there. Let me ask you a question. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's all.
I was just going to ask, how things, you start talking about evolution, and just like you and I order stuff off Amazon and it's there immediately. Is Artery Pay capable of paying through, like if they wanted to order their product online and have it delivered to them, or order it online and pick up in store?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, Artery Pay is able to support online, in-app, and in-store purchases. And what's even more fun about it is because you operate it from either a smartphone or a tablet, you can take that to you with festivals.
Oh,
sorry. I said that backwards. You can take that with you to festivals.
Right. No, I understood what you said. I say things backwards all the time too. Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking what a cool, if you could make it the preferred payment processing of cannabis, there's not really a definitive leader in that space that I've seen. Is that what your vision is? I mean, are you looking to be in however many dispensaries you can be in? Yes,
we are. And, we want to help with dispensary, with home delivery, and also with enterprise transaction. We're very concerned about the safety risks.
The B2B part.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Goodness gracious. Enterprise levels of cash. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars that you are taking in what, like a briefcase. I mean, we have these mafia style situations in our head where we're thinking about somebody opening a suitcase that's full of money. And my God, we have duffel bags of money.
I travel. I mean, I have, when I walk out of certain locations, it's the backpack's on, strapped, triple strapped, and then I'm going right to my car, and then, I'm flying with lots of cash.
It's terrifying.
It's for me. I'm not necessarily as terrified as I am. I know people would be tempted if they knew what was in there.
Sorry, that's what I consider to be terrifying.
Yeah,
so to me, thinking about the physical risks that people have to take on in this industry just to support patients like myself, it's just unconscionable. Sorry to use one of those big ol' lawyer words that it's just I cannot believe that this actually goes on. It's not fair. It's so not fair. It's unconscionable.
Well, and if you're just a normal person wanting to go into a dispensary, I mean, my wife runs around with cash because I'm in the cannabis space, but
Yeah.
most people don't pay for the groceries with cash. Most people don't pay for that. There's just, you have to think of how the consumer's already been bred to participate when
Yeah.
they're doing their purchases, and
Yeah.
the fact that cannabis has made it so difficult is definitely, and they're still doing an amazing amount of business. That's what's even funnier. How does
Well, yeah.
how does the so explain, like, I'm a dispensary. Is there a, like, how do I have to pay for the service? Is it free? Like, what's that look like?
So what we have put together is a platform that's free to consumers, which is, that's going to push drive a lot of them to the platform immediately, because you're talking about, $3 or $4 to use, ATMs, point of sale, even debit.
Yeah, well, those guys,
I
a lot of
mean,
those people own their own ATM, so they're just doubling down on that charge. Is it free, like
yeah.
free to use, and then you pay a processing fee? Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah. So
Okay.
from our perspective, we have to do enhanced know your customer on everybody, of course, but our rates are meant to be commensurate with small business rates. So they can be as low as 2%. That's unheard of in the cannabis industry. I mean, we're really trying to make this easy. We're trying to be fair. We want to make sure that this is something that is sustainable. A lot of these businesses are small businesses and they're getting squeezed. I mean, on the
Between
taxes,
sales tax,
all the
cannabis
consultants
tax.
that you have to
Oh,
have.
it's bananas. My buddy just sold his dispensary, but we were, I would go through it with him, and it's just, yeah, you might do $200,000 in a day, but you're gonna pay like $40,000 in taxes. I mean, that's a whole nother problem. I
Mhm.
also know people that have tried to go in and pay their cannabis tax with cash, only to be told that they're going to get charged a fee to pay with cash.
That's right. The fee in California, there is a penalty. Like, there's no other way to say it than it's a penalty. Um, and it is 10%.
And try rolling into the California State, Franchise Tax Board with, $300,000 in a, you start talking. Now I'm
Yep.
terrified because,
Yes.
like, trying somebody to jack me for 20 or 30 grand is like, okay, as long as I don't act like a fool, no one's going to know I have it. But when you're walking around with $300,000 in cash, and it's not as convenient to have it in all hundreds, you know what I mean?
Oh my
So
gosh.
it's in
Yeah.
20s and 5s and 10s. So it's like multiple
Yes.
bags, and then you get there and you go to pay, and they're like, yeah, you can't do that
Yeah.
here. You gotta well, then I gotta go down to Western Union and like convert it to a money order. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's like,
And what are you paying for that too?
there's just not a lot of, there's some missing pieces when it comes to the cannabis space. And from the front end, I think a lot of people are thinking about the front end. They're starting to have more, some of these websites. I mean, is there a plan for you to partner with, like, let's say LeafLink or other people? And maybe, I hope I didn't say a bad word, but like,
Oh no.
these online platforms where people are ordering their product, where you could be
Absolutely.
the built-in processor for that.
Absolutely. We're designed for that. We are designed very specifically to help with online ordering, online menu services. And if mobile apps ever are able to be accepted in the app stores, I mean, of course, they could do private releases, but anybody who's really looking to interface with the consumer in a digital transaction medium, this is fantastic for them. They're no longer going to have to deal with walking around with $4,000 worth of cash. I mean, I actually had a delivery I got a delivery last week, and it's so funny to me thinking about myself. I'm like this dumb little blonde girl, like running around kind of a crummy neighborhood in San Jose, and I've got like $140 in my ID that I'm flapping around trying to figure out where the delivery driver is,
right?
Because Google Maps also mislabels my apartment complex,
Oh,
so
awesome.
it sends them like down the street to this like sketchy park, and I'm like, and luckily I know most people in the neighborhood, because I'm the kind of person that when I go and set up in a new neighborhood, I like to become friends with everybody who's around. So like I'm everybody knows that I'm just kind of like the dumb white chick.
You are
who's
not
just
dumb
like,
by any means. Don't put that on yourself. You're very smart.
Well, running around flashing $140 is not exactly the
But
brightest
people
thing.
rob pizza delivery. People will knock off a pizza delivery
yeah.
guy. Why wouldn't they knock off the weed guy? It's like safe. there's so many things that people don't even think about when it comes to the cannabis space. They're just so happy to get
That
their
way.
product, but they don't realize like how much waste is actually taking place in that transaction, by money being spent on an ATM fee or money being spent on a high debit card fee. And, look, those dispensaries, they pass that on to the customer, most of them.
That's right.
So like if you get charged a 3% fee on your transaction, guess who's paying that? You are. So it's another way to like make it cheaper or save the customer some money. They may even still pass on the 2%. Who knows? I mean, a lot of places are doing that regardless now, but it's just, to me, it's like one of those things where like you're probably the first business that's solving this problem that when you explain it the way you explain it and how it transacts, it makes sense, and it's covering things that we haven't thought about in cannabis, such as the miscoding. I mean, we talked a little bit when we first met about ease and how they were miscoding transactions into like beauty care, and it's not even really their fault. You know what I mean? They've been given a merchant account, they've been given everything, but then the merchant account person is really the one that sets up the class.
That's right.
So it's like here this person sets up this person's class. They don't really maybe even know enough to ask, like, what class are you setting me up under? And bam, the next thing you know, they're getting hit with money laundering charges.
Yeah, that's right. And, it's a shame. And, it's not a burden that should be put on any business. Businesses should be in the business that they're in and not have to acquire expertise in every single other facet of other industries to be able to operate. And, that's something that really is unique to cannabis. Yeah. I mean, you get slammed by just all of these different regulations and you don't even know where it's going to come from. And that's the thing, I could see this coming down the pipe and I did not want something stupid like somebody being.
You mean like it just happened at Ease?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't.
I don't really think it's their. I don't really think it was Ease's fault necessarily. I think they just got told that they could take credit cards and they were going to get set up.
Yeah.
Next thing they know, it's somebody complained because of how it came across on their credit card receipt.
That's right, and you know what? That's what's been happening with pretty much all of the credit card processing. It comes across. I review receipts. I do a little bit of go shopping to see, what the processors are up to.
Sure.
And I hate to call them out on this, but there's a lot of times when you have a lot of in the credit card processing space in particular, you have these things called ISOs, which is for independent sales.
Oh, you're underwater really bad right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. You just went underwater for a second. Sorry about that. I should have told you faster.
Sorry. So in the credit card processing space, can you hear me?
Yep, 100%.
Okay, good. You have something called an ISO, which is an independent sales organization, which is what most of these processors are. They don't own the product. The card networks own the product. The actual processors are not even these guys that are called merchant processors. They're not really processors at all. They're just kind of a sales organization that goes in and sells you the credit card services. And they tack on their own rates. They're kind of a middleman. And so in a lot of ways, some of them may not even know. They may not know that what they're doing is illegal or is against the policies of the credit card networks. But some of them do. Some of them are completely aware of what they're doing and just don't care. They don't figure that the risk will actually fall on them. They are taking on a risk themselves doing that as well.
Sure, they're just seeing dollar signs.
That's exactly right. They see the dollar signs and they're like, whatever, I can take advantage of this. And, nobody else is doing it. They don't think like, oh, I wonder why.
Right.
And, if nobody else is doing it, there's usually a reason. And there are reasons in this. And unfortunately, it takes a high level of, again, knowing how that sausage is made to be able to get your way around it. And it's not fair because who ends up losing in the end on this
is, like you say, it's the actual businesses. And how were they supposed to know?
Well, yeah, and I think also because I used to own a retail store, and the credit card processing thing was something we revisited like every 6 to 12 months, just because you would get it's there's a very few companies out there that do just a flat rate. Oh, you pay 2%. Well, usually they're telling you, oh, it's 2%, but then that's the lowest rate you get. Like somebody brings in an unqualified card, or the magnetic strip doesn't work and you have to punch it in. That one costs you 6%.
Yep.
And so those are the hidden things that in traditional credit card processing, people are unaware that the businesses, like small businesses specifically, get slammed on a lot. Now on the cannabis side of things, these dispensaries have already had money confiscated, have already been raided, so to them, cash in hand is like it's going to be like, what is as the industry relaxes, that fear of my money might be gone is starting to kind of recede a little bit. But how are you convinced, like when I think about earlier when I mentioned the word artery and how it was applicable, it's like you want to come in and replace the artery that they're currently working with, which is a straight cash system, to a digitized system. How do you whet the appetite of the dispensary? Because if that dispensary is doing $200,000 a day, let's say, and your system for whatever reason has an issue or doesn't give them the money as fast as they want or whatever, like how do you overcome those fears when they're asked by the dispensary?
Well, there are a couple of things. Money talks in this situation. The cost for cash management is at least 12% of revenue.
And that's because of security guards or like getting
security,
charged,
vaulting, moving the cash around when you're paying people, having to do that, that trade-off. You have to have armored guards basically at all times.
Well, you're trying to pay everything in cash. You're paying your employees in cash. Even if you're taking their taxes out, you're paying your taxes in cash. You do have
and that's a 10% right there.
Yep.
10% again on your taxes. There's a 10% up penalty. So if you've got $300,000 that you're paying them, another $30,000 to be dropped on top of that.
And I'm sure most people aren't paying that.
I really hope not. At the same time, okay, don't quote me on that.
No, but it seems it's like romantic, right? To like be all, oh, this cash. But then after a while, you start loathing having all that cash, because when it's free like that, there's always a chance that someone's going to take some. There's always a chance that you're going to miscount it. There's just so many things. But I know how hard it is in the dispensary world, just talking to them, on certain things that I do. When you start talking about their money processing, man, like, do you have how do you win them over? Like, what's the magic way to do it? I mean, besides like cost savings or anything else, like, how do you run a test? How do you prove to them that the system works so that they have confidence?
Well, that's the other thing that we do is we do provide testing.
Okay.
That's the thing. They've been burned so many times. I understand where they're coming from, saying like, why should I trust you? And you know what the good answer is? You shouldn't. Right. It's your money. You should be vetting the people who are coming through and trying to offer you services and make sure that they can actually deliver. We have a fully working product. This stuff works. I have no problem showing them how it works. I have no problem, helping them set up a test run, doing pilot programs. We can work with them on incentivizing their patients to also get online and use these systems.
Yeah, because it's a two-headed like snake, if you will, that you have to have a person with their artery pay account as an individual, and the dispensary has to have it. So you're having to. So let's just say a dispensary has 4,000 people in their membership, if you will. You want access to those people in some fashion.
Yes, that's right. And, we have a couple of different programs set up for that. We it's downloadable via our website, arterypay.com. It's downloadable in Google Play. It's downloadable in the App Store, which a lot of people, if they've got a smartphone, this is something that's downloadable. They can set it up in less than a minute.
Sure.
Which is fantastic. They don't have to give us really any private personal information, which is fantastic. And they're able to transact pretty much right away. It takes time with a lot of other systems. They want you to pre-fund it.
Yeah.
And of course you can fund us as well. We are a mobile wallet, but at the same time, you can transact immediately on us. And we are taking on some additional risk to make sure that that processing time is cut down for the merchant. So they can actually get their money faster with us than they can with competitive systems.
Yeah, I don't see why this would just be stuck to the cannabis space. It seems like,
it's not.
To me, like it's an exciting alternative to PayPal and everything else. And are you, so like if I have if I have an e-commerce website, you're still underwater a little bit. If I have e-commerce website and I'm like, let's say I want to set up, could you be my gateway for that? Hello?
Can you hear me a little better now?
I can now. Yeah, you just kind of phase in and out of being underwater, but that's the
sorry.
downside. No, it's the downside of being on the phone. I thought it was my phone at first, but I'm
sure it's mine. I'm not in the best in the East area.
What
this can be used for a merchant gateway for pretty much anything.
Oh, well then we're going to talk, because we run an e-commerce platform and for our company, and if I can help, for me it's like, I've got to pay somebody a percentage. I'd rather be paying somebody I know than just some random company, Well, everything that you've said has been really compelling, and I think it's an area that you've made more sense than most of the people I've listened to in the financial space when they start talking about taking, credit cards and using blockchain technology. And, when we first spoke, I was like, I've heard this one before, and realistically it's not. And so I'm excited to see you panel. You're going to be paneling here pretty soon, right?
I guess so. I mean, I'd be delighted to, for sure.
So what trade shows can we what trade shows? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I am going to be speaking on a panel actually at CSUMB on September 27th.
Cal State Monterey Bay.
Yep. I'm going to be speaking there. And that's going to be also about being a female CEO. But I'm sure that we will also talk about the product there. I will be speaking at AvantPay in Washington, D.C. That is, I believe, September 30th and October 1st. And that will be directly about the compliance concerns and about, how to approach banking and payments for high risk, including cannabis.
Sure.
And then I will be speaking on my own experiences with using cannabis for pain management at this pain management summit in front of a bunch of neurologists at the University of Pennsylvania in November.
I use cannabis.
Yeah, I use cannabis, and guess what, guys? It works.
Are you going to be hitting any shows? Are you guys going to be doing any trade shows here coming up?
Oh, yes. We'll be at Long Beach for sure.
NCIA?
We're going to have a booth there.
Oh, yep. Good. Okay.
I will probably be walking the floor at MJ Biz Daily in Vegas.
Same.
Yeah. And, I'm always
That got moved to December, right?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right up against Emerald Cup.
Yeah. And I'm sure that we'll be at Emerald Cup too. We should be, I believe that we're going to be sponsoring some things there, but we will see. We'll see how that goes. I need to get back to Hazel on that.
That's funny. Where can we find you as we wrap this up? It's been amazing. I can't believe it's already been 50 minutes, but do you have some social handles, website? How do you want people to find you?
Sure. So we are rebranding. Yay.
Oh, really? It's not going to be Artery Pay anymore?
No, it's still going to be Artery Pay. We are at www.arterypay.com. Of course, you can download us also in the App Store and on Google Play.
And you can find out more information. I post to LinkedIn fairly regularly now, and have been doing some thought pieces in Health and in some other publications. I think we may have something coming out in MG magazine.
Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. They'll have to approve the article, of course.
Sure. What about IG? You on Instagram?
I mean, I'm on there.
Oh, but Artery Pay is not.
No, I mean, it's so exciting watching people run transactions, right?
Okay,
it's
so
not
fair
the
enough.
fun part of cannabis,
We
is it?
want people to go to arterypay.com. We want people to find you on LinkedIn. And you can find her through, Ashley Elsner. She's, just Google her name on LinkedIn and then look for her articles. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm having sat on the board of a bank. This is interesting information to me. And I think for people that are looking to start in the cannabis space, this is a huge solution for them to be able to latch onto and to not have to pay the exorbitant fees to manage your cash. It sounds exciting until you're having to do it. And then you got to figure out how to, get that cash back into the system and pay your bills. So I thank you so much for coming on here and explaining all of that for people. And I want people to go download your app and check it out and start asking your local dispensary to use Artery Pay so that they can save money and you can use your credit card or right from your bank account versus doing, a debit card or an ATM machine.
Yeah, no credit cards with us. Again, can't do that for this industry yet.
Nope.
But you can definitely do this to do
comes out of your bank account
payment.
Same as a debit transaction, just not as expensive for the vendor
or the consumer.
Well, thank you. I look forward to running into you at one of the shows.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danny. Thank you for having me, and I really appreciate it. Thank you to your audience. It's really fantastic being on here, and we're just really happy to get the word out about our product. We just want to help.
No, you're awesome for that. Thanks.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
You too. That's a wrap. Thank you for listening to this edition of Cannabis Karaoke, another kick-ass podcast about all things cannabis. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and our website, cannabiskaraoke.tv. And if you or someone you know would like to be on the show, please hit the book your interview button on the right. Cannabis Karaoke. Grab the mic and tell your story. Wow.